Thank you, Katie. And that's right, indeed. I have a very special guest today opening the ITB eTravel track of the ITB Berlin Convention 2022. But first, I want to welcome all of you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and tuning in. And a special greetings goes out to everyone joining us on LinkedIn Live. Thank you also for joining us. Make sure after the LinkedIn Live session to switch platforms and join us on itb.com. That would be great. We wouldn't want to miss you. So, as Katie said, I'm not by myself in the studio. I have a wonderful guest with me, and it's my absolute pleasure, Kathrin Anselm from Airbnb. Thank you so much for coming in. It's wonderful to have an in-person, sit-down interview. I love it.
Thank you, Lea, for having me. It's a true pleasure.
Absolutely. And before we start, I want to just share a few words about yourself as a person. That's always interesting to know who we're actually talking to, right? Because
yes.
Airbnb, everyone knows, but who's Kathrin Anselm? And when I was reading your bio, I was thinking, oh, she's a serial managing director and chief operating officer, because you're an expert in building, scaling, and optimizing digital businesses, right? There's a few companies you've been with. We all know the brands, like Deliveroo is one of them, Limango, Wimdu, and One to Like that successfully exited to Parship.
Exactly.
So quite a track record there. It's an honor to have you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. And I was thinking to start off, I'm not a numbers girl, but maybe it would be good to look into some numbers. So are you ready for some numbers?
Let's do this, Lea.
Okay, perfect. So I was checking the quarter 4 earnings from Airbnb 2021. And if you look at the revenue of $1.5 billion US, which is actually 38% higher than in Q4 2019, so 2 years ago. And also 2020 were exceeded by nearly 80%, which, if you summarize this, is a 25% year-over-2-year growth in revenues. And that's all happening alongside a pandemic, a global one, and even the December 2021 Omicron impact.
Indeed, yeah.
So, Kathrin, how come?
Yeah, so I mean, first of all, as everyone in the travel industry, right, we were so badly hit by the pandemic. March 2020, our revenues slumped by 80%. And for weeks and weeks, we just tried to just keep head above water, right? But a really astonishing realization was that people, I think, sort of when the first dust settled in a way, everyone started traveling again.
Right.
We saw bookings coming in, people coming back to the platform, looking for stays. But it was different travel. So travel was coming back really quickly, but it came back differently. And looking back at these 2 years, 2020 and 2021, and just looking at sort of the key reasons why we were able to achieve these amazing results, for which we're so grateful, is, I think at its core, is that the business model of Airbnb is simply very adaptable. We were simply able to adapt to very different travel needs and travel patterns. There is a reason why we think this is actually a travel revolution that the pandemic triggered. People started to travel, but they traveled differently. And the second reason is that Airbnb is, at its core, a design-driven company, designing for users, for our hosts and our guests. I think makes us successful and drives this capability of adapting very, very fast to new trends.
Right. And you mentioned the travel revolution, right? That's what you like to refer to. So is there specific trends you can point out?
There are many.
So share some with us.
Yeah, so they changed over time, really. So when the pandemic was really, it was 2020, it was new, it was peaking. People started to travel only very nearby to where their home country, their hometown was. Exactly, it was staycations, and the data actually showed that people traveled as far as one gas fill would take them, just to be safe. What emerged as a trend, and which I actually love because it's about rediscovering your own country, is traveling rural. So rural travel as a trend emerged very, very notably, and actually rural travel grew by 45% year over 2 year in the last quarter. But on the other hand, while city travel was lagging a bit behind in 2020, city is recovering.
It
City
is?
travel, yeah,
Very
it's
good.
great. Berlin,
That's good news.
yeah, it's good
That's
news for
good
Berlin,
news.
for example, yeah, and many other cities around the world. City travel is coming back. It's nearly on Airbnb. It's nearly fully recovered. So traveling much more rural, domestic spiked, cities recovered. But I think the biggest and most interesting trend is that people started to travel longer. And that's driven by people being just much more flexible
Right.
in terms of work. Traveling longer means, if we look at booking data at Airbnb, is stays that account for 28 days or more. They make a whopping 22% now out of our nights booked and grew immensely. Overall, if you look at the average length of stay, the trip length, it has grown as well. So the 7-day trips, which makes the core of the bookings, has grown as well. So you see here, people are traveling longer.
Right.
And they are basically living, they are traveling longer, they're not traveling anymore, they are living on Airbnb and they are staying months at a time.
Yeah, that's interesting because if I quote Airbnb co-founder and CEO Brian Chesky here, right, he said the pandemic has led to a revolution in how we live, work, and travel, and we're constantly innovating to meet this new way of traveling and living. And he himself, Brian Chesky, actually is living only in Airbnb homes at the moment. That's right. That's right.
He does, yeah.
He does,
yeah.
So what's the implication? So you mentioned then we could talk about workation, or there's certain terms used in the industry for that. Can you give some examples? How did you adjust the platform to meet this new demands? Because staying somewhere and working and living, probably you have different needs than before when you were only traveling for leisure. So
of course, yeah. So actually, as just connecting to what I said earlier, adaptability of the business model and the platform was key, and we constantly innovate the product both for our guests and hosts. And just keep in mind that our host community has also grown quite notably over the past years. It's now a 6 million community around the world.
6 million, wow.
6 million hosts have welcomed 1 billion guests since the foundation of Airbnb. Yeah, really, this amazes me every single day. And for example, for the guests, for the hosts, we overall launched. For guests and hosts, we overall launched alone last year 150 improvements to the platform. So to give you an example, for hosts, for example, we made becoming a host much, much easier. So the so-called list your space flow takes you in minutes through from nothing to a listing on Airbnb. We have relaunched and much more improved the insurance coverage for our hosts. We have a product that is called Air Cover. So every host on Airbnb is covered for damages, $1 million US dollars, and $1 million in liability. So because we listen to our community, this is what hosts told us.
And you're building trust with that too, right?
Yeah,
so, which is important in times of uncertainty, yes.
And then on the guest side, for example, something that, a couple of features that are really resonating with this super trend of people traveling much longer is flexibility in the search. We improved our search, and it's now I'm flexible. Right, you can search up to 12 months. You can be much more unspecific about where you want to go. It's maybe I want to go somewhere where, Southern Europe, summer, I don't know when. Or maybe you feel like an accommodation. I want to stay at a lighthouse or a specific cottage. Show me what's available in the next 12 months. That feature alone has been used something crazy like 500 million times in the past year. And also very sort of no-brainer functionalities like I need a functioning Wi-Fi when I'm traveling longer term.
Yes.
So we launched for our hosts a product or a feature that allows them to verify the Wi-Fi strength and just publish it on their listing. And guests are using it as a filter like crazy. This is really one of many features that make traveling through Airbnb much easier.
Yeah, and all done in a very short time period as well.
Yeah,
So that's
yeah,
that's
yeah.
impressive. And have you seen a shift in destination search for? You said there's a flexibility now, but is there a shift in destinations that your guests are looking for in particular now?
Yeah, you do see trends emerging. So for Germans, obviously, we have the all-time classics, right? Italy and
Right.
Spain is simply always on top of the list. But if you look specifically into the longer term stays, and it's not only the digital nomads, it's actually also families doing this. We've seen a spike in family longer term travel. So here what we're seeing is countries like Portugal, Croatia, Greece, attracting a lot more bookings on Airbnb. But I have to say the classics remain. The
Right.
Canary Island, the Balearic Islands. So yeah,
Well, yeah, humans like what they like, right? So yes,
in a way, yes. Some
it's
things probably won't change.
yes. Well, good to hear though. Like I
Yeah,
like Italy, so
yeah.
and I want to tap into a topic that's maybe is more like a challenge, and I think Airbnb is confronted with that many times, especially when we look into cities, right? And you mentioned cities are recovering, and housing shortages in big cities. That's a reality, and many cities are really looking how to solve this. And yeah, Airbnb is an active player in that ecosystem. It's
We are,
yeah,
yeah,
right.
yeah.
So can you share with us what's your activities? How are you supporting to maybe help solving that
Yeah.
problem?
So what's really most important to me personally, also overall we at Airbnb, is that we think in partnerships with cities. We think we need to develop a system with the cities, in partnership with the cities, where home sharing, short-term rental is possible. People want to do it. It's mainstream by now. We have 6 million hosts globally.
Right.
At the same time, we are fully supportive of regulations that help protecting housing, but we say it needs to be proportionate and fair. So to really cater to two needs, to the need of the communities and the cities to have some form of control, transparency, data. And we're actually offering a really great service with our city portal in terms of, providing data to
What
cities.
do you mean by city portal? So cities have access to your data?
Yeah, so we're
Right.
providing, we've launched that, I believe must be last year, late summer, I believe. It's called Airbnb City Portal. It's a
Right.
service we're offering to the cities. And this is basically a portal where we collate data on, listings on Airbnb, so the number of listings on Airbnb in a certain city, how many bookings we see and how many guest arrivals we see. So to give transparency to the cities, but also help them. They have a key goal, and that's recovering tourism in the cities. And I think we can play an active role in that. So helping communities to protect housing by being a good partner and supporting regulations is really important. But on the other hand, and I want to make this very clear, because this is mainstream and people enjoy being hosts and want to do home sharing, we need fair and proportional regulations. Right. And I think we're getting there. We've set up a number of, I think, north of 500 partnerships already with cities globally. We have been collecting tourism tax with cities.
It's a city tax, right? For example, here in
Yeah,
Berlin.
yeah, exactly. So we have voluntary collection agreements with certain cities, and I think globally we already paid out something like $3 billion US, and in Germany alone, 2 million. We have 2 agreements with the city of Frankfurt and Dresden.
Right. Okay.
So
I see.
a lot going on, but
Yeah.
it's important, and I think we have really good solutions on the table.
Yeah, it's about the balance, right? So in the end,
Yeah,
the locals want to enjoy the city, but we also want to share the city with the visitors. So yeah, great to hear. And I want to steer a bit to the topic of marketing, because the eTravel track, usually we would have the ITB marketing distribution day today. So of course I want to do something for the marketing folks here. And I mean, it's not a secret, right? Airbnb is admired for the strength of brand. Like there's such a strong brand positioning, and we all like. Could you summarize, or what's your opinion? What's the secret sauce? Why is Airbnb's brand so strong?
Yeah. Actually, fun fact, because you said it's interesting to get to know me as a person as well. For me, Airbnb was always an iconic brand, and joining Airbnb was really a decision of love, because I thought this is such an iconic company,
Right.
great values, and the brand is so amazing. And it never fails to amaze me, so that's good. So the secret sauce here is that we've been cutting down tremendously on paid search marketing to really build the brand. And we are building the brand through dedicated investments in brand, but we're not doing this like, splash money around everywhere. Very dedicated, for example. We just only launched in Germany only this year again, and the last time was 2019. Our new television campaign, really lovely spots. We launched in 2021 in Europe our Made Possible by Host campaign, just very much focused on the brand and the brand experience. And what I personally find amazing and such a great achievement for Airbnb, so important also in the marketing mix, is that 90% of traffic on Airbnb is direct, and that is a testament to the strength of the brand, really.
Yeah, that's a competitive advantage as well. If you look, I mean, you cannot really compare Airbnb, Booking, Expedia, all these players, but still there is a strength of brand where you quite have an independence there, right?
And just adding one additional element, which I think also differentiates brand building at Airbnb, is we are fueling the brand through dedicated communication activities. So press as a communication channel, as a brand building channel, probably is the company. I've been working for 24 years, I believe, and this is the company that has been focusing by far the most on including communication and press into the brand building setup and channels. And for example, only on Airbnb. This is part of pop culture now. Having the Sex and the City apartment in New York being offered for a stay. That's what's driving the love for the brand too.
Yeah, and I bet also like the hosts themselves, right? They're strong ambassadors. If you have super hosts and they're proud.
Yeah,
being hosts.
I think the best feature of this job is, and we do this every senior manager does this regularly, down to even junior people sitting down with hosts and just listening to their stories and why they host. And why they host on Airbnb. It's amazing.
Very interesting. And now I also want to steer into a topic I think that you are quite busy with at the moment, and you have a lot of experience there as well because you led many teams before. We're certainly living in a time where one thing is certain, is the uncertainty. So we're coming out, like we're still in a pandemic, right? Now we're facing the next crisis. But then in the combination with flexibility and the rise of new work, what are the implications for you as a leader? What would you say? What are you focusing on? How are you approaching your leadership style there?
Yeah, this is a really good question, Lea. So we've been working remotely from home for the past 24 months. Airbnb is very safety of the employees, also safety of the host and the guests is of utmost concern to the company. So we've been opting for a safer approach and have offered people to stay at home. So for me, I think the biggest learning in my leadership was working from remote is just one version of working that works really well. We've achieved everything in 24 months. We've seen revenue slump by 80%. We had to lay off people. We have housed thousands of frontline workers with our hosts on Airbnb.org. We achieved an IPO. So in a way, not a lot has. This setup was always there. Working on Zoom was always there. But a couple of things changed really, and that is the learning to let go, I'd say. Learning to let go for me means leading teams and not controlling them. Right. This is such a North Star for me. If you work globally on Zoom and you have people working from home, you just need to take trust in your teams to a next level as a leader. And I can tell you, it's not easy. No one probably finds it easy. And you have to just challenge yourself to do that, to not control, but to lead. And then I think the second sort of leadership principle that really changed for me was deliberately and very consciously asking myself, am I a fixed mindset or a growth mindset?
Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah.
I love that. And I love Carol Dweck's work on growth mindset.
Me too.
And just acknowledging that leading is about constant learning and constant change, and you need to embrace the change. And you can do this, in my belief, only by just keeping your growth mindset fresh and keeping it fresh in your employees as well and in your teams. And I think the third element that I think only learned through Airbnb the past 24 months was as a leader, I need to step up in taking responsibility for the mental health of my employees. This is not about the fruit basket and the coffee at the workspace anymore. It's much more about opening a meeting with truly asking, how are you today?
And having the time.
And taking the time.
Right.
And I probably as a German, you find that a little bit weird in the beginning, but it's something that became a routine, and it's just one tiny element that makes a huge difference. I enjoy being asked by my boss, "How are you today?"
Right.
I love it.
Yeah. That's very insightful. Yeah, I love the aspect of the growth mindset. I think that's helpful for basically everyone if they would look into that concept. And then also, I mean, you also have families working in your team, right?
Of course,
I was in contact with one of your fabulous team members, and she had her baby on the back end. Like,
Yeah,
I could see the baby on the Zoom. So I met her family basically. So that was very lovely.
Yeah.
Not imaginable like 3 years ago, right?
No, yeah.
But now it's kind of, yeah, that's okay. Of course, we do it like that, and there's results as good as it has been before, right? So there's no change in the outcome. But is there something you would say Airbnb is doing in particular to support families or working moms and dads?
Yeah. So we have, basically we look at life phases in life and life events, right? So having a baby, be it, and building a family can, this both for female staff and for male staff. We have really good programs for both male and female humans to just take time off, to embrace that very special time of getting a baby and building a family, and also taking maternal or paternal leave. There is something that my female staff tells me they're enjoying the most, or enjoying tremendously, is a back to work program. So you come back to work, and it's open to everyone, 80% of the time, but you're paid for 100%. That takes so much pressure off you. Yeah. You can't imagine how many people come back to work. It's still most women, and say, I'm scared. Will I live up to expectations? I have been away for maybe 10 months, 15 months, or 2 years. I'm stressed, and that's a way of taking off the stress. Another example I personally use is our caregiver allowance. We have up to 6 weeks of caregiver allowance for everyone. And I use it for my mom is my father is a caregiver to my mom, but he is 82, and he asked us to support him. So I'm taking these 6 weeks in small slices, and I'm working from their home and just have the freedom and just the peace of mind of spending, an entire afternoon with my mom, going to medical appointments, just being here for her. And at work, it's fine, right? Everyone knows I'm in a caregiver slot right now.
Yeah, it sounds easy, but it's powerful in its impact. So
it's something that takes so much stress off yourself, right? Will people understand? Is it okay to just not be here? And that makes it much easier.
Right. And then, of course, I have to ask you, because yesterday was the International Women's Day, right? So congratulations, belated. And you are a passionate mentor for female leaders. You're also a member of the task force for diverse and women leaders. So what's your very brief take on that, the positioning or message you have all around female leadership? What do you see there?
Yeah, maybe 2 things. So don't, this has been, it was yesterday, obviously. So if you congratulate belated, congratulate women not on International Women's Day, but make sure that when you run a company or you employ people or you're a team leader, that women and men are equally paid, and that, women have the exact same opportunities than men have. And I think if everyone has that present, not only on March 8th, but 365 days a year, we will just, we will take such a leap forward in getting to parity and equality. And the second is I've been always adamant about it. I am in favor of a quota. I think having a 50% split at the workplace, no matter which level, is truly a goal that is important to achieve.
Right.
And for me, the quota is not a bad thing. For me, I think in objective and key results, for me, it's an OKR. As a company, you set yourself growth OKRs, and you set yourself an OKR to be, at 50-50 at a certain period of time. And you simply make sure that through quarterly sprints and OKR reviews, you just get there, right?
Right.
And if people don't commit to it voluntarily, well, you just need maybe a bit of a more powerful instrument, and that is a quota. And I'm perfectly in favor of it.
Right, perfect. Great to hear. And well, there's terrible events happening at the moment, and we're in thoughts with all of them, like suffering really bad circumstances at the moment. And I have to ask you about it, of course, because
Yeah,
that.
of
And
course. Yeah.
if you look at your position as well, it's the
Yeah.
market you're responsible for,
Yeah.
Central Eastern Europe and Russia. So guiding teams and partners and potential partners in times of such an uncertainty and actual danger as well. What can you share with us? How, is there any steps Airbnb is taking? How are you responding to the crisis in
Yeah.
Ukraine?
Yeah. So yeah, the Ukraine and Russia are part of my country portfolio, and for the Ukraine. Yeah, I mean, Russia invaded the Ukraine. This is probably the beginning of the biggest humanitarian crisis post World War II, and everyone has to step up. Companies have to step up. And what we pledged now with our non-profit organization, sister Airbnb.org, is that we are providing free short-term housing for up to 100,000 humans fleeing the Ukraine. It's not only Ukrainians, and it's really important to keep in mind, people of many ethnicities are fleeing the Ukraine,
Right.
and this program is open to all of them. So this is what we are currently, what we've pledged, what we've committed, and this is what keeps me busy 24/7 currently, making sure that we are activating our host community, and they are signing up. There is, alone on the landing page for this project, we've seen something like 1.2 million visitors in the past day since we launched the initiative. So hosts are signing up, but I just want to take the opportunity. Our hosts currently are by far not enough. So everyone who considers hosting and providing a home to someone who's fleeing the Ukraine, do it. And if you feel like it, do it on airbnb.org/help-Ukraine and become a host.
Right, that's a very good point. And I think we will share this later on social media as well, so everyone has the URL and make sure to
Great,
find them.
thank you.
Yes, and then we have 3.5 minutes left. And just considering the opportunity we're having here, right? It's like thousands of travel professionals from all over the globe watching, tuning in, listening to you. So is there a message from you personally that you want to share with the industry to close this session?
Oh, that's a great opportunity. Thank you, Lea. So here's my thinking. Probably one of the key learnings I've had through my 2.5 years with Airbnb is a community can be your absolute superpower as a company. And in our case, and it doesn't apply just to platform providers like Airbnb or technology providers. I think this is a concept that can apply broadly. And what I mean with that is taking the host, in our case, taking the host and the guest as partners on eyes level. Engaging with the community, in our case, is twofolded. We sit down with them regularly. We have specific host meetups on regional, local level, up to our host council, which we launched last year, where we have global host representation, meeting regularly with our executive team. This is a unique chance to learn every day about the needs and about fueling your innovation and ultimately and eventually your capability of adapting to a global pandemic. And on the other hand, building these strong ties with the community enables us to do exactly what I just said about the Ukraine. Pledging that we are housing 100,000 refugees with the help of our hosts, and this is something that Airbnb is financed through Airbnb, the Airbnb Inc., the Airbnb org, and we have hosts who are so generous in saying, I'm offering my accommodation for free. But releasing this power in times of crisis, I think is only possible when you have a strong community building capability and you take your community really seriously and you see this as a long-term gain and maybe just for building for the infinitive.
Yeah, that's a beautiful message. Thank you, Kathrin.
Thank you so much, Lea.
Well, it was my absolute pleasure sitting here with you and talking. I could go on for hours, like for sure. So I hope we repeat that next year at ITB Berlin 2023. Thank you for coming in. Kathrin, Anselm from Airbnb, thank you so much for being here with us. And thank you everyone in the audience for having joined us, and also everyone on LinkedIn. Make sure to switch the platforms and join us on itb.com. Don't miss the reminder of this program. And yeah, greetings go out to our community of the travel industry. That was really fun. Thank you, Kathrin.
Thank you.